Welcome to the TalentGrow Show, where you can get actionable, results-oriented insight and advice on how to take your leadership, communication, and people skills to the next level and become the kind of leader people want to follow. And now, your host and leadership development strategist, Halelly Azulay.
Hey, welcome back. This is Halelly Azulay. I'm your leadership development strategist here at TalentGrow. And this is yet another episode of the TalentGrow Show, but this time we have a pretty unique guest in that he doesn't fit the mold of most of the guests that we've had on this show. Most of them are kind of in the business world, but this guest, a world-renowned executive chef, Charles Carroll, and he shares with you the 7 rules of the kitchen and how specifically they completely convey to life and to leadership. He also shares 3 things that you need to do as a leader to make sure that your team succeeds. And a really simple, deceptively simple tip that he says is actually the biggest secret of his success. And I have to give you a little confession. While I always try to keep these interview shows to 30 minutes or so, I allowed this show to go a little bit longer. And that's because right as we were wrapping up, all this goodness started coming out. All of these just wise golden nuggets that Chef Charles was sharing that I could not stop. I really wanted to make sure you heard them because there's so much goodness in there. So I think you're going to love the whole episode, but make sure that you stay tuned all the way until the end. And I do have a challenge for you. As you're listening, I want you to think, who specifically do you know that's going to absolutely gobble up this episode? Who is the perfect person who needs to hear this one? I know there is someone either that you work with or who works for you or that you're friends with or that you know from your family or from your extracurricular activities that you think will be the perfect fit to listen to this specific episode. And then when you finish listening, and if you agree that it was a great one, send it to them, email it to them, text them, whatever, so that they can listen too, okay? That's my challenge to you. And I would love to hear about this. So let me know too. But most importantly, I hope that you enjoy it. And here we go, Chef Charles Carroll. Hey there, talent growers. I'm happy to have you meet today's guest, Chef Charles Carroll. He is the executive chef of the River Oaks Country Club in Houston, Texas. He has a unique perspective on success, on greatness, on leadership, and on what makes amazing teams. And this is not your typical TalentGrow Show guest because he is usually thinking about and working in kitchens, but he has such a unique perspective. First of all, he has been a culinary Olympics gold medalist. Since the age of 24, he's participated in 8 different Olympics over 3 decades. He's executive chef at one of the highest rated country clubs in the nation. He manages and mentors a team of 75 in 6 kitchens and 3 restaurants, putting on 80 to 100 banquet functions per week. And he maintains an incredible sense of family spirit and team morale in the process. So we want to try to get leadership lessons from Chef Charles Carroll. Chef, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Well, I'm really happy that you've come along. And one of the main reasons that I've come across your work is your latest book, which we'll also talk about. It's called The Recipe, a story of loss, love, and the ingredients of greatness. But before we do that, I always ask my guests to briefly describe your whole professional journey. Where did you start and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, I think you did a good job with that already, but I grew up in a country inn in Vermont, which my mom and dad owned, and I went to the Culinary Institute of America for culinary school, and I spent 13 years at the Balsams Grand Resort Hotel in Dixville Notch, New Hampshire, where I kind of climbed the ladder eventually through sous chef and executive chef, and went on to New York for 4 years at Oak Hill Country Club, and now here in Houston at River Oaks Country Club. So along the way, I did a lot of competitions all over the world, and a lot of people don't realize that there actually is a World Culinary Olympics. And so I was involved with a lot of teams representing the United States of America, which is pretty special. So I don't think I'd be here today without that. So I guess that's kind of in a quick nutshell.
I certainly did not know that there were culinary Olympics. That's pretty cool. So let's think for a minute about this new book. First of all, it's co-authored with John David Mann, who is a co-author of a few other books that are written in a parable format. And this one is like that as well. And so I read it. It's really an easy read, and it has a lot of lessons that you say are the ingredients of greatness. So break that down for us. What do you mean by that?
Even the title is fun, the recipe, So, when I first started writing the concept of the story 7 years ago, I wanted it to be a book that you would see everywhere at the airport and Barnes & Nobles everywhere. So hopefully it would intrigue the foodie right away and pick it up. And then you realize that each chapter has a life lesson or the mentoring of the chef and a young boy. And in each chapter, they cook something together, which immediately, usually when I describe that to people, they're like, how cool is that idea? Because there's so many lessons in food that you could easily tie to life lessons, having patience and waiting for a vegetable to be perfect before you harvest it, or not wasting any of the product. And there's so many lessons in food that you're easily able to compare to life. So we really allow the reader to use their imagination in so many ways. So that, there's, you mentioned the rules for living, or the chef's rules in the kitchen. They're all carefully tied and allows the reader to kind of go on their own journey.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So the book covers 7 rules, and they are the rules of the kitchen, but then they are sort of conveyed over to how they can also be rules for life. So
right.
I hope that everybody goes out and gets a copy of your book. But just briefly, if you could give us the lowdown of these 7 rules, and then maybe because of the angle of the TalentGrow show is very much on developing leaders, which of these rules do you think particularly apply to leaders? Let's
start with the kitchen. I have 75 employees, and it's amazing that sometimes you have to remind people you got to taste everything. So that's rule number 1. Taste everything. And food changes as it sits longer, as it cooks longer, as it's chilled down longer. Food has so many different dynamics. So we ask all our chefs to taste everything all the time. And I guess I should compare that now over to the rule of life. You have to kind of savor every moment. Do you see what I mean? There's a kind of a comparison in that. And then rule number 2 in the kitchen would be improve every dish that you touch. Because, you mentioned how busy we are here at the club. Lots of times you can find people just, punching in and going 100 miles an hour, just get the food out. Just do whatever you can. Don't be late, but get the food out. So we don't really want our people working that way. We want them to slow down a little bit, and you get the recipe in front of you, but that's a guideline. That's a guideline for what you have to do today. But we want you to take, because the products that the onion that you taste today may taste different tomorrow. The tomato that you have today is going to taste different tomorrow. So you taste everything, and then once you get that recipe, you get that dish, you improve on it. So you have to stop and smell and touch and taste and see what you can do to make that dish a little bit better. In life, you want to try to take that practice in everything that you do. So that's how we make this play between while they're talking in the kitchen, the young boy is mentored by a kind of a crusty old military chef. And he kind of relates those kitchen rules to life. And that's where Owen comes up with his own rules of living. I guess you can go to the next one, pay attention to all the little things. As a young chef coming up to the ranks, many times in competition, everybody wants to go do the showpiece, but they don't want to do anything. They don't want to take the necessary steps to be successful. They just want to go immediately to the gold medal. They want to go immediately to the fun stuff, immediately to the centerpieces, because that's fun and that's the biggest show. But you really have to slow down and be willing to take all the steps that you need to build a really solid foundation. And that's true to anybody or to anything in life. And I think that a lot of leaders listening to today's podcast probably are experiencing the same thing. You get the young person fresh out of college and they immediately want to be successful. They immediately want the corner office. But, you have to earn that. You have to gain the experience. There's one thing, this generation can't do. You can't click around experience.
Yeah. It reminds me of, I don't know if you've watched the documentary, I think it's called Jiro Dreams of Sushi. And it's about it's very interesting. It's Japanese sushi chef. I hope I'm not mangling it. I'll put the correct link in the show notes if anybody's curious. I watched it because my son is a foodie. And so he turned me on, and he loves sushi and Japanese food in general. So he turned me on to this. And this is like one of the best sushi chefs in the world. But he explains that anybody who comes to his kitchen has to do prep for 10 years or something like that before they can even put a dish in front of a customer. And that seems so excessive, when you think about that, and, to reflect on what you just said about people coming in and they're so impatient, they don't really want to put in the time to do maybe what seems like grunt work. But I agree that a lot of times when you do something that is not very glamorous and it seems very repetitive, it teaches you foundational skills that help you then be able to go above and beyond and maybe be more intuitive or in the moment, because you're building your intuition through practice and through experience.
Oh, there's absolutely no question. There's absolutely no question. And I think as leaders today, we have to be very careful to recognize that, and also to put our people in positions where they can be successful. And one of the biggest successes I've had in that, getting off the book a little bit, is that you have, as a leader, in my case, a chef, it's my job to make sure I paint the picture for all my employees, all my young people, about where they are right now, and then find out what their goals are and how can I help them reach those goals. And I have a particular reputation here in the United States and parts of the world, and the club has a fantastic reputation in the United States, and my background has a pretty good reputation. So if you put those three things together and you are really successful here at this club, and the amount of volume that we do at this club, then you're going to be pretty darn successful if you take these steps. So my job is to help paint that picture for them. This is where you are now. These steps that you're taking to get on the porch are investment steps for you. And at the end of the day, at the end of the tunnel, you will, I can paint how successful you will be if you are willing to do whatever it takes. And it's easy to paint that picture. But I think a lot of times what happens in today's business is you jump in and just go in there, and you don't have, I don't want to say in a lot of cases, but we're so busy that there's not a lot of people to stop and then help mentor these young people and put a hand on their shoulder and say, hey, I see this for you. That's great advice. You said something, get on the porch. What do you mean by that? Well, I kind of use that analogy, but you have to, if you want to get on the porch, you have to take 3-4 steps to get up on the porch. You just can't jump. A lot of today's generation just they don't want to have to take the steps. They want to jump. They don't want to do the actual 2, 3, 4, 5 years of work. They don't want to take the escalator. They want to get on the elevator. They just get on there, push a button, let's go. And you just can't Google around or punch around or use the computer to get you experience. It's just not going to happen. Gotcha. So you can't shortcut that. So what I'm hearing you say is that if you give people a great vision of what's possible for them, and then get curious about what specifically are their aspirations, and then help mentor them along the way, it sounds like that's how you can help people not be so impatient as they're working with you. Is there more to it? No, that's it. But I guess there is one other step. We've kind of formulated that a little bit more. I mentioned one of my other books called Leadership Lessons from a Chef, and there's a lot of lessons in there. And one of them, so to take that step another further, I have what we call sit downs with a lot of my top employees, or all my employees at some point or another, and that's to sit down with them for 30, 40 minutes and uninterrupted, to talk about their life, what they're doing, where they're going, how their family is, and what are their hobbies are, and where do they see themselves in 3 to 5 years? Because, how often do we do that? Mm-hmm. And so if you schedule these sit downs, then the employees are looking in the office and say, hey, who's in there now? Hey, what do I have to do to get that meeting one-on-one with a chef? And so it helps everybody grow. And as you do that, you have these opportunities to help paint that picture for them. So everyone's eyeballs are wide open. So it's about investing your time with your people and formulating that into a plan. Love it. So I think we've covered 3 of the rules. Right. So what's the 4th? Compose your space, kind of control your environment that you're in. And because you can only control what you control. If you try to control what you can't control, you're out of control. Everyone's heard that kind of saying. And so while you're jumping these, while you're taking these steps, trying to be successful in whatever business that you're in, just worry about you right now and your space. And the same goes in the life rules, really. You want to put all your efforts into controlling the sail and not the wind. You can't control the wind. You can react to the wind. And that's what you want to try to keep focused on. Just worry about you.
Okay.
There was an interesting saying I heard. Steph Curry, that plays for the Warriors. There was an interview when they this may be off track, but when they were bringing Durant onto the team, and some of the press was trying to get his juices flowing, and said, "Well, this guy's getting paid more than you are, and do you have a problem with that? And you're the star of the team, and what do you think about all this?" And the awesome comment that I thought that he came out was, "My daddy told me a long time ago, never count somebody else's money. Never count another man's money." And I thought that was a really mature, well put comment. Just worry about you right now and where you're going and how you're going to get there. I kind of like that. So that's number 4. And build your team. You're only good as your team. And I have 75 people here. And as a leader out there, you can't be afraid to hire somebody more talented than you are. You can't be afraid to hire somebody that is a really great thinker. You can't be threatened by these things. You should embrace them. And the better your team is, the better you are. So that's important. Number 5, and then number 6, commit to excellence. There's a lot of people that when taking those steps where they want, they just want to take the step and maybe not be as thorough as they could be. You can do something excellent today, but are you going to do something excellent tomorrow? Is it going to be a habit for you? Is it going to be a way of life? So you have to commit to it. And then, of course, getting into life, you never compromise your standards. So it's kind of like what you do when the lights are off, or what do you do when no one's looking, kind of concept. Yeah. And then number 7 is to cook with honor. Care about the food and respect where it's come from. Respect the people that planted the seed, and if everybody thought for a second how much work it took to get that carrot onto your cutting board, you would treat it a little bit differently. So that's the same thing in life. You live with honor and you treat everybody around you with respect. So that's why we had so much fun with the book, the recipe, and in cooking and food, and how we work in the kitchen relates so well to life. So it was great fun.
It does sound like fun, and it is a really nice way to read it, in that format in the story, because you get kind of two for the price of one. You get an interesting story, but you also get to learn all of these lessons and see them come to life. So thank you for coming up with that and for sharing it with the world. So share with us a story. I think, speaking of stories, you have a very exceptional career and have been a leader for a very long time. So I know that there's probably plenty of stories in your bag of stories of times when you realized you were making a mistake as a leader. And if you could think of one such story, like what was a mistake you were making, a leadership type of mistake that you were making? How did you become aware of it? And then what did you change as a result of it to improve your leadership?
I think earlier on, when I became executive chef at the Balsams Resort at age 27 or 28, which is on the younger side, I think, for such a large resort.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of hunt and peck and feel and kind of read who my mentors were, as opposed to a lot of really great hands-on experience. But as you're growing and climbing, you're climbing as an individual. You're climbing as an employee that wants to excel, that wants to do better, and wants to be a manager one day, wants to be an executive one day. And then all of a sudden one day you reach that plateau and you're up there, and now you're supposed to have all the answers. Now you're that guy. Now you're that person. But now you can't think as an individual. You have to think as a team. So that's a big lesson. Prepare yourself on leading teams. And so I guess my lesson for this would be to listen really, really well, to be a really good listener. One of the first challenges I had as a young chef, and the first couple months into the job, was an employee came to me with a situation, And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe what you're saying, what you're telling me. This is unbelievable. I need to go have a serious talk with this other employee that was involved. So, without listening to the other person's side of the story, I immediately started, disciplining this person in my own way, and you can't do this, and without giving that person an opportunity to tell their side of the story. So, you have to I would encourage everybody to practice to be really good listeners, because there's always two sides of the story, and just be patient and let the story play out. Also, I would, in that particular situation, I would bring both employees into the office at the same time, because stories quickly change when you have the two people involved in the same office. So that would be one. And quickly, another one on listening. When you're in that executive meeting with 10, 12, 14 other managers / executives in a boardroom, listen as much as you can. Don't be the first one to speak. Don't be worried about getting everything that's in your head out on the table. Don't be concerned with being the chatterbox of the room. I would encourage you to do the opposite. I would sit in that executive board meeting and learn as much as you can from everybody who's in that room. And you're going to have your chance to talk. You're going to have your chance to add to the conversation. But chances are you're going to learn a ton more if you keep your mouth shut and listen to everybody else. And then you can have that last word. You can have that an educated response and a better response had you not listened, and tried to respond earlier in the conversation. So the moral of the story is be the best listener you can be. That's what I would say.
Love it. Very good. Well, so this has been a great lesson you've shared. What else can you share with us about building team morale? So that's one of the things you take pride in. You said you have 75 employees, and you've already shared a couple of techniques with us. But one of the things that I know you experience in the world of the kitchen, which is also true in every corporate environment, every organizational environment I've ever heard of or seen, is people always feel like they don't have enough time. And lots of times when you're called on to be a leader, you're rarely just purely leading others and doing nothing else. You're often, you have your hands in the food, right? To use your metaphor. So how do you make time, or what do you do to ensure that it doesn't become an afterthought or something that you didn't have time to do?
Yeah, I have a lot of answers to that, I guess. Well, and I try to relate it to the book. In the recipe, the chief, just to give you a little taste, so all your listeners go out and buy the recipe.
Yes.
Because I don't want to ruin the book for you. But in the recipe, the boy loses his father at a very young age, and he gets mad at life and mad at the world. And the chief, the chef of a diner, sees this, and he pulls the boy in and starts mentoring it. So getting to your question, in the book, the chef allows Owen to be himself. He allows Owen to see his own mistakes as they happen. He allows him to make the mistakes. He allows him to make decisions to correct them. So my point is, he's allowing Owen to become a man on his terms. He's just simply pointing him in the right direction. So and then later in the book, Owen becomes very successful. So relating that to the leadership world, it's my job. You mentioned 80 to 100 parties a week and 75 employees, 6 kitchens, 3 restaurants. I can't be everywhere at all times. I can't control the wind everywhere. So it's your job to do a couple of things: hire really good people, and 2, let them do their job. 3, do everything in your power to make sure that they have everything they need to be successful. Those 3 things. If you do those 3 things, they'll be successful. But allow your people, allow your good people that you've hired to run their own ship. And it's my job just to give them guidance. So we have sous chef meetings every other Saturday, and we talk about what's going on in the club. We have we talk about everything that's happening and standards. We talk about what's happened in the past and where we're going in the future, and if there's any new policies that come up. And then you allow your leaders to go out into your property and out into your business and be successful. It's your job to stay ahead of them and help in the planning of the future of the property, but you got to allow your sous chefs, if you will, to run their show. So get out of their way don't micromanage, and let them be successful. That would be my biggest advice for that.
Beautiful. So we are getting to the point where we have to start wrapping up. And one of the last things we'll do is you'll share one very, very actionable tip. But before, what's exciting on your horizon? What's got your attention these days?
Well, I mean, the recipe is we're still, I mean, we're launching in October, but, we're in a promotional period now. So we just finished 8 short films, which are some of the recipes that the chef cooks with Owen in the book. So it's a beautiful, emotional story. And it's really, there's great twists in it. And so what we've done is we picked 8 of the recipes, and John and I have cooked them in the kitchen, and we've had a lot of fun. And then we banter back and forth about why the recipe was chosen and how Owen's working with the chef. And we pull out all the great moments of the book. So we just finished filming those last weekend, and we have some editing to do that. So that's going to keep us busy for the next 6 weeks. We're also making a trailer for the book, and we do have movie interest. Believe it or not, we have the book in front of 3 different producers. So
Cool.
There's some work going on. Yeah, there's some work going on with that. And then, of course, I have my real job, and then I have another show that I'm working with right now called Celebrity Sweat, and that's on A&E. And it's a show with fitness with celebrities, and I'm doing a cooking segment on that. There's 12 shows a year, and then I'm also working on a TV show, which we'll see if that happens. It's getting really, really close on some. I'm putting together a pilot, and that show at the moment would be called The Recipe.
Wow.
Which would be it's a really fun concept and a really great TV show. We're real close on putting something together there, and we have a couple other projects that possibly dipping our toe in the water with some children's books. And
my goodness, You're extremely busy and very productive. Good on you. That is so exciting.
Oh, thank you. We're excited. We have a lot of good people. It's fun. It's fun. You just keep pounding on doors and wait to see which ones open. So.
Well, that's super interesting. Well, I wish we could keep talking for a lot longer, but I bet some people are about to get to work, or you're about to finish their treadmill run, or whatever it is that they do when they listen to us. So what's one really specific action that they can take this afternoon, today, this week, that can help them become a better leader using your perspective?
Everybody asks me, well, how do you do all this, or how do you do that, or how do you balance it all? And then there's a lot of other people, well, I wish I could do that, but I don't have time. Or I wish I could, I wish. And I guess I would say, if you want to be successful, if you want to be an entrepreneur, or if you want to do that thing, what is it in your life you want to do? You want to be incredibly successful, and you want to be great, you want to be extraordinary. My advice would be, get started. You got to get started. You can't finish until you start. What I find is a lot of people never start just because, they think it's going to be impossible, or that guy on TV does it, but I can never do it.
Yeah.
I'm living proof that you can do it. I mean, I'm a chef full time, and now we're finishing my 3rd book, and I've been to 8 different Culinary Olympics. I've been to Afghanistan 3 times. We fed the troops. And put on amazing entertainment shows, and nobody does that as a civilian. But we did it. We did it twice, and been to Afghanistan 3 times. And now we're talking about TV shows and kids' books. And my biggest secret to anybody who asks is, all I did was I got started. And you just keep pounding and pounding and pounding until it happens. And this book becoming a movie is because I'm keep pounding. And we have it in front of some really exciting people. One of them in particular is amazingly exciting. So you just keep pounding. And one of the things that quickly I learned in Afghanistan when doing these shows is there's nothing that phases me. Because every day someone told me it's not going to happen. Every day says a general is going to pull the plug. Every day said, well, it's the food's not going to make it there. The gifts that the 8,000 pounds of gifts that you raised and you got donated aren't going to make it in time. And I just take a deep breath. I say, okay, hold on. We'll figure this out. So there's nothing that phases me. And as long as you look at life that way and you keep pounding, you will be successful. You will get something done. So that's, and I believe it as sure as I'm talking to you right now.
Well, I can tell that I can hear your conviction, and that is very inspiring. So thank you for that. Because we're pretty much almost done with our time, I still want to help people. Let's say that they do experience this challenge you described, that it's overwhelming. They feel like they don't have time. They listen to people like you, and it's, either inspires them or makes them feel like, oh my God, I can never be like that. And you say, keep pounding, or just get started. But let's concretize that. Like, what specifically would you say to someone if you were mentoring someone right now who said that to you? I don't know even what that means. Like, what do you mean get started? What would be like a really specific action someone could take if they feel kind of overwhelmed by what you just said?
Well, there's a couple things. First of all, let's use the example of a book. Who am I to be writing a book? I went to see my mom for her birthday one time. I got off the plane. I was reading this nice little book, and I told my dad, I'm going to write a book. And he slapped me on the back and said, good for you. Now come on, get in the car. I said, no, really, I'm going to write a book. And then 6 months later, I had a contract with a publisher. So let's take writing the book, for example.
Okay.
What I started doing, I started punching the keys. There's this great movie, I forget the name of it now, but there was this professor that was trying to teach this boy, to start writing, and he just sat there and looked at the typewriter. He said, "Start punching the keys. Start punching the keys. You got to punch the keys." So I just started writing, and I was writing, and next thing I know, I had 80 or 90 pages. It wasn't a book. I thought it was a book. I thought, but it was 80 or 90 pages of what poured out of my heart. But you got to start. You got to punch the keys. You got to use that in anything. How do I get over to Afghanistan? Well, who do I know? I know one of the most important guys in the military. And so I went and talked to him. So anything in your life, what do I know about TV shows? Zero, zilch, nothing. I know nothing about TV shows. But I've already had 80 conversations with experts, people in LA, people in Hollywood, NBC, local people from the NBC and CBS channels here in town, and I've had over 80 conversations. There's not one of them that was a waste of my time. I may use 2 or 3 of those conversations to the 100% of its max, but I learned so much in those 80 conversations. I just keep calling the meetings.
Yeah, and this is great. We're gonna stop that right there. But listeners, the part we see is where the TV show is almost about to happen. The part and then it's launched, or we see the book launched. But 80 conversations, that takes a lot of time, and that takes a lot of perseverance, and that probably involved a lot of rejections along the way, or obstacles and blocks. And so it's getting up and doing the very next thing and being willing to put in all that legwork to have the outcome, rather than just imagining that life is about people having, magic unicorns deliver the results to them.
Right, and you gotta ask yourself: do you want to be great or not? Do you want? If you don't, that's okay. In the kitchen, I need people to peel carrots too. I need people to sit in the corner and peel carrots all day long. That's fine. So we're not expecting that everybody wants to run through walls for you, but you got to ask yourself: do you want it bad enough, or do you? Or if you don't, but if you do, every single conversation there's never a bad one. And if something fails along the way, you have to. It all depends on your focus. Where are you looking? If it fails, you can thank yourself. It's okay. That's fantastic. Now I know that's a direction I don't need to go in right now.
Yes.
So look at it that way. So I just learned something else. I spent several meetings talking to local NBC stations, and then I realized after several conversations that we don't want to go local. We want to go national. But I learned so much along that way. So. And let me leave you with this one last thought.
Okay.
If the audience, the people in the audience are listening right now, and you're overwhelmed, and okay, that's all great, Chef Carroll, that's great, but I can't do it, or I'm just overwhelmed. I have too much on my desk right now. I can't even breathe right now. I want to inspire everybody out there to be exercising, going to the gym too, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
But when you're sitting there and you're overwhelmed, and the phone's ringing, your boss is after you, and you don't know, you're trying to balance everything. Just stop, take a deep breath. And stop and think of these 3 things. Win. What's important now? What's important right now? WIN. Just remember that acronym, and then take a deep breath and say, you know what? I got this. Okay, so I know I'm plastered and I got all kinds of stuff on my desk, but what's the most important thing right now? Okay, it's this. That becomes number one. What's next important? That's number two. Okay, I can breathe now. I know my desk has 40 other things, but I'm going to just focus on what's important right now, and you can be successful. So that's a really good leadership when you're just getting pounded with a bunch of stuff. Just worry about what's important right now, and you can breathe.
Great. I love it. And I think we tied everything right back into a big circle to where we started. And so I'm super happy about that. Chef Carroll, how can people stay in touch with you, learn more about all the great stuff that you're doing, and learn more from you?
I appreciate that. Well, first of all, I need you all to go out and buy the recipe. And because the more people buy the recipe, the more chance we have of it becoming a movie.
Okay. And we will link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, and that's therecipethebook.com, therecipethebook.com. And you can order the book there. My website is chefcharlescarroll.com, and we have links to the book there. And of course, my co-author is the famous New York bestselling author, John David Mann.
Yes.
And so between that and Facebook and Twitter, I'm pretty active on Facebook and Twitter. You can see, in fact, if you go there, you can see all kinds of our filming that we did last weekend.
Cool.
We had a
all
bunch
right.
of fun with that.
Good. Well, we will link to all of that in the show notes. And thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate that you've shared your experience and your insights with the Talent Growers community. And I hope that you have lots of great success, continued success with everything that you're doing.
I appreciate that very much, and thank you for having me, and look forward to talking to you in the future. Happy to come on anytime.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. So I hope you agree. This was really an interesting take, a little bit different from what we're used to sharing here on the Talent Grow Show. And I hope that you will take my challenge up and send this episode to someone you know that could really enjoy it and learn from it. And of course, there's no limit to how many people you can send it to, but let's just do one, right? Kind of like Chef Carroll said, what's the next one thing that you can take action on? Let that be this one favor for me, and also a favor for this person. If it's a good fit for them, they'll appreciate it. So you'll actually be getting bonus points from both of us. How's that? That's a pretty good way to start your day or end your day or do something at lunch, whatever time it is that you're listening. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll take action. Check out our show also on the C-Suite Radio Network. That's an exciting place that our show has been featured as one of their excellent business-related podcasts for people in the C-Suite and beyond. And that's at csuiteradio.com. And thank you for listening. And until the next time, I am Halelly Azulay, your leadership development strategist here at TalentGrow, hoping that you make today great.
Thanks for listening to the Talent Grow Show, where we help you develop your talent to become the kind of leader that people want to follow. For more information, visit talentgrow.com.